The invisible addiction destroying your discipline. You probably think you're tired because life is hard, because work is exhausting, because your schedule is overloaded. But that's not the real reason your mind feels weak right now. The truth is much darker than that. Your brain is exhausted because it never gets a moment of silence anymore. Every day, your attention gets attacked from every direction. Short videos, notifications, endless scrolling, fast entertainment, constant stimulation. Your brain never rests, and little by little, something dangerous starts happening. Simple things stop feeling rewarding. Reading feels difficult. Focusing feels painful. Even your goals start feeling emotionally distant. Researchers who study dopamine and attention have observed that the human brain adapts to overstimulation incredibly fast. The more instant pleasure you consume, the less satisfaction you feel from normal life. That's why so many people today feel mentally paralyzed without understanding why. They're not physically tired. They're overstimulated to the point where their brain no longer tolerates effort. And this is where most people destroy themselves without noticing. Because when your brain loses the ability to enjoy slow progress, discipline disappears. Motivation disappears. Your mind starts craving speed, distraction, novelty, noise. You stop building your future because your brain becomes addicted to escaping the present. But here's the strange part. Almost nobody talks about some of the most powerful things that can rebuild your discipline are not intense routines, brutal self-help systems, or motivational speeches. They're simple hobbies, quiet activities, things that look almost useless at first glance. And yet, experts in behavioral psychology explain that certain low-stimulation activities can slowly retrain your dopamine system, restore attention span, reduce mental chaos, and rebuild the part of your brain responsible for consistency and What's even more shocking is that one of the hobbies in this video is often ignored because people think it's boring. But scientists studying focus and habit formation discovered that this exact type of activity can dramatically increase patience, mental endurance, and emotional stability over time. The scary part is this. Most people will never try these habits because modern life trained them to avoid silence, slowness, and repetition. But those are exactly the things that rebuild a strong mind. And once you understand what constant stimulation has secretly done to your brain, you'll never look at your daily habits the same way again. While your brain nitrogen monoxide longer feels satisfied. Have you noticed how hard it's becoming to enjoy simple things? A movie feels slow after watching hundreds of short videos. Reading a few pages feels exhausting. Even sitting quietly for 10 minutes can feel uncomfortable. And the worst part is that most people think this is normal now. Ite fenot. Researchers who study attention and dopamine discovered something alarming about the modern brain. The human mind adapts to stimulation very quickly. The more intense and frequent the stimulation becomes, the more your brain starts rejecting activities that require patience, focus, or delayed reward. That's why so many people constantly feel restless without understanding the reason. They wake up tired. They procrastinate important tasks. They lose motivation halfway through goals. They open their phone without thinking. Not because they're lazy, but because their brain has been trained to expect constant emotional rewards every few seconds. Your brain slowly becomes impatient with reality itself, and this creates a dangerous cycle. The more overstimulated your mind becomes, the harder it feels to do meaningful work. Then you escape into more entertainment to avoid discomfort. That creates even more overstimulation. And little by little, your discipline starts collapsing from the inside. Behavioral experts explain that this is one of the biggest reasons modern people struggle with consistency. Their brains are overloaded with instant gratification but undertrained in effort tolerance. And this is where simple hobbies become powerful in a way most people completely underestimate. Because slow activities force your brain to recover something it lost, the ability to stay present without needing constant excitement. A simple hobby like reading physical books, sketching, building puzzles, or even writing by hand creates a completely different mental state than fast digital stimulation. Your attention stops jumping every few seconds. Your thoughts slow down. Your nervous system begins stabilizing. At first, these activities feel boring. That reaction is important. It's proof that your brain became dependent on high-speed stimulation. But researchers observed something fascinating. After repeated exposure to slower activities, the brain slowly rebuilds its tolerance for focus and effort. Things that once felt mentally painful start feeling calming. Your attention span improves. Your emotional impulsiveness decreases. You begin feeling satisfaction from progress instead of constant entertainment. And that changes more than productivity. It changes your entire relationship with discipline, because the moment your brain relearns how to enjoy slow progress, motivation stops depending on emotion. It starts depending on momentum. And the next hobby might be one of the most underestimated tools for rebuilding focus in the modern world: the boring hobby effect that rebuilds focus. One of the biggest lies modern culture ever created is the idea that your brain always needs excitement to stay engaged. That belief is destroying people's ability to focus. Most people today can consume stimulation for hours, but cannot concentrate on one meaningful activity for 20 minutes without feeling mentally uncomfortable. And the dangerous part is that they interpret this discomfort as boredom. But specialists who study cognitive performance explain something completely different is happening. Your brain is not rejecting the activity because it's boring. Your brain is reacting because it has lost its tolerance for sustained attention. That changes everything, because some of the most powerful hobbies for rebuilding discipline are exactly the ones people try to avoid. Reading physical books, solving puzzles, learning chess, drawing by hand, writing in a notebook. Activities with no instant reward, no flashing lights, no endless novelty. At first, these hobbies feel slow and emotionally flat. That's the withdrawal effect of overstimulation. Researchers observed that when people constantly consume rapid dopamine from social media, gaming, or short-form entertainment, the brain starts expecting immediate emotional payoff from everything. If the reward is delayed, the brain interprets it as frustration. That's why so many people quit things quickly now. Their nervous system lost patience. But something fascinating starts happening when you continue these slower hobbies consistently. Your brain begins recalibrating. After a few days, your thoughts become less chaotic. After a few weeks, concentration starts feeling easier. After some time, your mind begins experiencing satisfaction from progress itself instead of constant stimulation. And that's where real discipline starts being rebuilt. Not through motivation, not through hype, through neurological adaptation. Experts in behavioral psychology explain that repeated low activities strengthen the brain's ability to tolerate effort without emotional resistance. In simple terms, your mind stops panicking every time something requires patience. You become mentally steadier, and this affects every part of your life. Work becomes easier to finish. Conversations become deeper. Your emotions become more stable. Even anxiety often decreases because your brain is no longer trapped in constant This is why so many highly disciplined people protect quiet hobbies so aggressively. They understand something most people don't. Focus is not built in intensity. Focus is built in stillness. And the next type of hobby goes even deeper because it doesn't just calm your mind. It changes the way your brain processes stress, anxiety, and mental overload through something incredibly simple: using your hands. The silent power of working with your hands. There's a reason your mind feels louder when you spend too much time consuming and not enough time creating. Your brain was never designed to only absorb stimulation all day. It was designed to interact with the physical world. And researchers studying stress and cognitive overload noticed something extremely interesting. Activities involving repetitive hand movement often create a calming effect on the nervous system, even when the person doesn't realize it consciously. That's why certain hobbies feel strangely therapeutic without looking powerful from the outside. Cooking, gardening, painting, organizing a room, folding paper, building small objects, fixing things. Even simple activities like cleaning with intention can shift your mental state dramatically, because when your hands become active, your thoughts slow down. Specialists in behavioral neuroscience explain that physical interaction pulls attention away from endless internal noise. Your brain becomes anchored in the present moment instead of drowning in anxiety and constant mental fragmentation. This is why many people suddenly feel calmer while cooking alone at night or organizing a workspace in silence. Their nervous system is finally escaping digital chaos for a moment. And this effect becomes even stronger because these hobbies produce visible progress that matters psychologically. Modern entertainment gives you stimulation without effort, but manual hobbies give you effort with visible reward. Your brain starts reconnecting action with satisfaction again. That's one of the missing links behind discipline. People think discipline is only mental strength, but researchers who study habit formation explain that the brain becomes more motivated when it can physically see evidence of progress. A finished drawing, a clean room, a meal you prepared yourself, a small object you built with patience. These simple moments quietly rebuild self-respect. And there's another reason these hobbies are so powerful. They interrupt compulsive dopamine-seeking behavior. Most people today cannot stay still without reaching for stimulation. The second discomfort appears, they grab the phone, they scroll, they escape. But repetitive hand-based hobbies create something rare in the modern world: sustained engagement without digital addiction. Your brain learns how to stay occupied without needing chaos, and after some time, something surprising happens. Your mind becomes less reactive. You stop craving stimulation every few minutes. Silence feels less uncomfortable. Focus becomes more natural. Even emotional impulsiveness often decreases because your nervous system is no longer trapped in constant consumption mode. But the next problem runs even deeper, because millions of people today are stuck in a cycle where they start everything and finish nothing. And the next hobby type directly attacks that mental weakness at its root, the hobby that trains your brain to finish things. One of the biggest psychological problems today is not lack of talent, it's the inability to finish. People start books and never complete them. Start projects and abandon them halfway. Start routines, goals, habits, plans, and lose motivation after a few days. And after repeating this cycle enough times, something dangerous happens internally. They stop trusting themselves. Behavioral researchers explain that every unfinished action leaves a psychological residue in the brain. Your mind starts associating effort with inconsistency. Over time, this weakens self-confidence without you even noticing it consciously. That's why so many people feel mentally stuck now. Not because they can't succeed, because their brain no longer believes they'll follow through. And this is exactly why certain hobbies are so powerful for rebuilding discipline. They train your brain to experience completion again. Learning an instrument, building miniature models, practicing calligraphy, knitting, playing chess consistently, sculpting. Even slowly mastering a simple skill at home creates something modern life is quietly destroying: closure. Your brain needs closure. Researchers studying motivation discovered that finishing small challenges releases a healthier form of dopamine than endless passive entertainment. Not the fast dopamine of scrolling, a deeper reward connected to progress, competence, and earned satisfaction. That feeling changes your psychology, because every time you complete something intentionally, your brain receives evidence that you are capable of consistency, and consistency changes identity. This is why disciplined people often protect small rituals obsessively. They understand that discipline is not built through massive moments of motivation. It's built through repeated proof that you can trust your own actions. At first, these hobbies seem insignificant, but slowly they begin repairing something internal. You stop seeing yourself as someone who quits everything. You begin associating yourself with patience, with follow-through, with control. And there's another hidden effect most people never notice. Completion-based hobbies Train your brain to tolerate delayed gratification. You stop expecting immediate results from everything. Your nervous system becomes less desperate for instant reward. You become more emotionally stable during slow progress. That's one of the foundations of high performance. Experts in cognitive psychology explain that people with stronger delayed gratification tend to show higher persistence, emotional control, and long-term discipline across almost every area of life. In other words, the ability to finish small things changes the way your brain approaches big things, and the next shift becomes even more uncomfortable for most people, because modern society has created millions of individuals who are terrified of being alone with their own thoughts. Why solitude is now a superpower. Most people are not afraid of silence. They're afraid of what silence reveals. That's why so many people keep noise around them every second of the day. Music while eating, videos while working, notifications while resting, endless stimulation before sleeping. The modern mind became terrified of stillness because stillness forces self, and this is where one of the most powerful forms of discipline begins. In solitude, researchers studying attention and emotional regulation observe that constant external stimulation weakens the brain's ability to process thoughts internally. In simple terms, the more noise you consume, the harder it becomes to sit with your own mind. That's why so many people feel uncomfortable the moment everything gets quiet. Their brain immediately starts searching for escape. The phone, scree, the distraction. But certain solitary hobbies slowly reverse this mental dependency. Journaling, deep reading, learning a skill offline, creative writing, silent observation. Even sitting alone while practicing a focused activity without digital interruption can dramatically strengthen emotional stability over time, because solitude changes the relationship you have with your own mind. At first, it feels uncomfortable. Your thoughts race faster. Your brain craves stimulation. You feel restless for no reason, but specialists in behavioral psychology explain that this discomfort is often the nervous system reacting to the absence of constant dopamine input. And if you stay in that silence long enough, something incredible starts happening. Your thoughts become clearer, your emotional impulses weaken, your attention stabilizes, you stop feeling mentally scattered all the time. This is why some of the most disciplined people in the world intentionally create moments of isolation every day. They understand that a distracted mind becomes emotionally weak very quickly, because if your brain cannot tolerate silence, it will constantly seek escape instead of growth. And modern life profits from that weakness. The more distracted you become, the easier you are to control, easier to manipulate emotionally, easier to keep consuming without questioning your habits, your goals, or your direction in life. But solitude interrupts that cycle. It forces your brain to reconnect with depth again. Researchers have even observed that regular periods of low stimulation improve emotional regulation and long-term thinking. Your mind stops reacting to every impulse and starts thinking more strategically. That's why quiet hobbies feel so different after a while. They don't just relax you. They rebuild mental independence, and once your brain stops depending on constant stimulation to feel okay, your discipline starts becoming much stronger naturally. But there's one specific moment of the day when these hobbies become even more powerful: at night. Because what you feed your brain before sleep quietly shapes your motivation, focus, and emotional state the next morning. The night routine hobbies that reset your dopamine. Most people destroy tomorrow before they even fall asleep. Not because they're lazy, because their brain never truly slows down at night. Look at what usually happens before sleep. Now, endless scrolling, fast videos, notifications, bright screens, emotional overstimulation. The brain stays trapped in consumption mode until the last minutes of the day. And researchers studying sleep, dopamine, and cognitive recovery discovered something alarming. The final stimulation your brain receives before sleep strongly affects your emotional regulation, focus, motivation, and mental energy the next morning. In other words, your night routine is programming your brain daily. That's why so many people wake up mentally exhausted even after sleeping for hours. Their nervous system never entered a state of recovery. It stayed overloaded until the moment they closed their eyes. And this is where simple nighttime hobbies become unbelievably powerful. Reading physical books under soft light, journaling before bed, sketching quietly, playing a calm instrument, solving puzzles slowly, writing thoughts by hand. Activities with low stimulation and steady focus send a completely different signal to the brain. Safety.com. Slowness. Researchers observe that low-stimulation nighttime activities help reduce mental hyperactivity and emotional impulsiveness. Your brain stops expecting constant dopamine spikes and slowly shifts into restoration mode. This changes more than sleep quality. It changes your mornings, because when your nervous system recovers properly, discipline becomes easier the next day. Focus improves. Emotional resistance decreases. Your brain becomes less desperate for distraction immediately after waking up. And there's another hidden psychological effect most people never notice. Nighttime hobbies create separation from digital chaos. That separation matters. Behavioral specialists explain that the brain forms strong emotional associations with repeated nighttime behavior. If every night ends with overstimulation, your nervous system starts living in permanent mental acceleration. But when your nights become slower and intentional, your mind begins recovering its natural rhythm again. You stop feeling internally rushed all the time. And something fascinating starts happening after repeated nights of low stimulation. Silence becomes comforting instead of uncomfortable. Your thoughts become less aggressive. Your anxiety often decreases naturally because your nervous system is no longer overloaded every evening. This is why highly disciplined people often protect their nights more than their mornings. They understand that tomorrow's focus is built the night before. And eventually, these simple hobbies begin creating something even deeper than discipline. They rebuild your relationship with yourself. Because after enough consistency, you stop seeing yourself as someone who lacks control. You begin seeing yourself as someone capable of change, the hobby that makes you respect yourself again. One of the most dangerous effects of losing discipline is not failure. It's that silent feeling that appears when you keep breaking promises to yourself. You say you'll change tomorrow. You say you'll focus more. You say you'll stop wasting time. But days pass, weeks pass, and deep inside, your brain starts noticing a painful pattern. You no longer trust your own words. Researchers who study behavior and habit formation explain that identity is heavily shaped by repeated actions, not intentions, not motivation. Your brain builds self-image from evidence, and when your daily actions constantly show inconsistency, distraction, and avoidance, your mind slowly creates a damaging conclusion about who you are. Someone unreliable. Someone weak, someone without control. That's why so many people today feel mentally defeated before they even try improving their lives. Their self-respect has been eroded quietly through years of unfinished goals, broken routines, and constant distraction. But this is where simple hobbies become far more powerful than people realize. Because consistent hobbies create psychological evidence of reliability. Reading 10 pages every night, practicing guitar for 20 minutes, writing daily thoughts in a notebook, painting slowly after work. Small actions repeated consistently begin sending a completely different message to your brain. I can follow through. And that changes your internal identity. Behavioral experts explain that the brain starts building confidence when actions become predictable. Every repeated habit becomes proof of personal control. Over time, your nervous system stops associating effort with failure and starts associating effort with stability. That's why these hobbies feel emotionally healing after some time. Not because they magically solve your problems, because they reconnect you with personal integrity. You begin respecting yourself again. And once that process starts, discipline no longer feels like punishment. It starts feeling like self. This is why many people notice unexpected emotional changes after maintaining quiet hobbies consistently. Their posture changes, their focus improves, their emotional reactions become calmer. They stop needing constant external validation because they're rebuilding internal confidence through action. And the most important part is this: Your brain does not care how small the habit is. It cares about repetition. Researchers observed that consistent small wins activate motivation systems more effectively over time than occasional bursts of extreme effort. Your mind starts craving progress because progress becomes emotionally familiar. That's how discipline is truly rebuilt. Not through intensity, through repeated evidence that you are becoming someone stronger. And once your brain starts reconnecting discipline with personal pride instead of suffering, something incredible happens. You stop avoiding difficult things, you begin seeking them. How to make your brain crave difficulty again. Most people today are not weak because they lack potential. They're weak because their brain became addicted to comfort. Every time something feels difficult, the modern mind immediately searches for escape. Open another app, watch another video. Delay the task, avoid this, and after repeating this pattern for years, the brain slowly loses one of the most important abilities a human can develop: effort tolerance. Researchers studying motivation and behavioral conditioning discovered that the brain adapts to whatever it experiences repeatedly. If you constantly escape discomfort, your nervous system becomes less capable of handling challenge. But if you repeatedly stay engaged during slow, difficult, or mentally demanding activities, your brain starts becoming stronger under pressure. That's why simple hobbies can completely transform your discipline over time. Not because the hobbies themselves are magical, because they retrain your relationship with discomfort. Learning an instrument teaches patience during imperfection. Reading long books trains sustained attention. Drawing develops tolerance for slow improvement. Chess strengthens strategic thinking under pressure. Journaling forces emotional honesty. Even building puzzles trains your brain to stay focused without instant gratification. These activities quietly teach your nervous system something modern life keeps destroying: how to remain present when things stop feeling entertaining. And this is where real mental strength begins. Experts in cognitive psychology explain that disciplined people are not constantly motivated. Their brains simply became more comfortable with effort. They stopped treating discomfort like danger. That changes everything, because the moment your brain stops running away from difficulty, your entire life starts shifting. You procrastinate less. You recover faster emotionally. You stop depending on mood to take action. And one of the most powerful psychological changes happens silently. Your brain starts craving progress more than distraction. At first, difficult activities feel mentally heavy because your dopamine system is conditioned for speed and novelty. But researchers observe that after repeated exposure to focused effort, the brain slowly increases its tolerance for delayed reward. This is why disciplined people often feel calmer during hard tasks, while overstimulated people feel immediate emotional resistance. One brain was trained to escape. The other was trained to endure. And endurance creates freedom. Because once your mind becomes capable of tolerating boredom, silence, repetition, and slow progress, distractions lose much of their control over you. You stop being manipulated by every impulse. You regain control of your attention. And attention is one of the most valuable forms of power left in the modern world. But there's one final truth almost nobody understands about motivation, discipline, and personal transformation. And once you understand it, you'll never wait to feel ready again. The truth about motivation nobody tells you. Most people spend their entire lives waiting to feel motivated. That's why they stay stuck. They think action comes after motivation. They believe successful people wake up inspired, focused, energized, and mentally ready every single day. But researchers who study behavior and performance discovered the opposite is usually true. Action creates motivation, not the other way around. And this is the trap that destroys millions of people silently. They wait for the perfect mood, the perfect moment, the perfect emotional state to start changing their life. But the brain almost never generates motivation during passive consumption. Motivation is usually born after movement begins, after the first page, after the first sketch, after the first practice session, after the first moment of resistance you decide not to escape from. That's why these simple hobbies matter far more than people realize. They are not just activities, they are training grounds for discipline. Every moment you choose focused creation instead of endless distraction, your brain changes a little. Every time you stay present without reaching for stimulation, your attention becomes stronger. Every time you finish something small, your identity shifts, and eventually, your life starts reflecting those changes. Because discipline is not built through one massive transformation. It's built through repeated moments where you stop betraying yourself. Behavioral specialists explain that the brain constantly adapts to repeated behavior patterns. If your daily life is filled with distraction, avoidance, and your mind becomes impulsive and emotionally weak. But if your life contains repeated moments of patience, focus, effort, and consistency, your brain slowly rewires itself for stability and self-control. That process is happening whether you notice it or not. Every day, your habits are shaping your future personality. And this is why modern distractions are so dangerous. They don't just steal time. They steal your ability to build yourself. Because a distracted person struggles to think deeply, struggles to stay consistent, struggles to tolerate discomfort long enough to achieve meaningful goals. But once you begin protecting your attention, everything changes. Your mind becomes calmer, your focus becomes sharper, your emotions become less reactive, and most importantly, you stop feeling controlled by every impulse. That's real freedom. Not doing whatever you feel like doing. Having enough control over your own mind that distractions no longer decide your future. And maybe that's the biggest lesson in this entire video. The hobbies that seem small today may quietly become the reason you rebuild your discipline, restore your motivation, and take control of your life again. Because in a world addicted to noise, the person who learns to master silence becomes dangerous.